This next video is going to go over the quote-unquote Ken Burns effect. And I'm basically going to cut out an object in Photoshop and have it draw the viewer's attention to something specific. I'm using this painting, because like we are going to do with our animating art project, it will have to come from a painting. I'm also using this because I am doing a documentary right now about victims of sex trafficking. So the premise is that women are coerced to be prostitutes, and it is not something people choose to do. And so therefore the content is I want to focus on the woman and how these guys are viewing her. And so based on that, we're going to create some sort of animation and draw the viewer's attention to strengthen that idea. Okay, so I'm going to start cutting out my object. So let's go ahead and zoom in. I'm going to cut her out primarily, and we'll go from there. And I'll probably edit out a lot of this part here so that you don't have to watch me do this again and again, but I'll just kind of get it started. And if you remember, you try to make as few dots as possible, and then we'll use the Bezier curves to clean it up later on. Okay? And in a painting, sometimes we don't have these really beautiful, harsh, sharp edges, so you have to kind of make do. So now we have these kind of rough edges. You can see this is not acceptable, so we're going to just zoom in again. And I don't like when you zoom in too far, you get to see all these little lines, and that's fine, but it just irritates me, so I go out a little bit further. And I'm going to select this Convert tool, and I've got my fingers down on the in this Convert tool. Notice that again it changes from the arrow to the Convert point tool when I put it over the dot. And then I'm holding in the Command button if I want to move it later on. Now you'll see initially when you do this, it allows this Bezier curve. Basically every dot you make you kind of have to deal with, otherwise you have these weird unnatural angles. And so I'm going to go through here and just kind of clean up each one of these dots. Okay, now that I've finished my selections, I'm going to go to my paths. I'm going to rename the work path. I'll call it woman, so that it's saved now. I'm going to control click or right click and say make selection. I'm going to leave the feather radius for 1 pixel for this situation, so you can kind of see that she's selected here. Go back to my layer window, and I'm going to say new layer via cut, so that we can see that she's there, and we can see that there's a spot here that needs to be filled. Okay, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to just make it cover up a little bit so that when I move her around or do something with her, there's not a lot of obvious change in the background. So I select the clone tool, and I'm going to make sure that, notice that it's got a negative. It's saying you can't do that. It's because if you look at which layer is selected, there's all this checkerboard saying that there's no video, there's no pixel image for information for it to use. So you have to make sure you're selecting the right layer. And then I'm going to come over here and make just a selection with the Option key, select, let go, and now I can start painting on this layer. And we have a nice even background there. Here, it's going to be tricky when I get to his arm, but like I said, we're going to be, she's going to be obscuring that, so it won't really be that big of an issue, but just the same, I'm going to try to use material that at least will show me the similar kind of colors, so I have to select, paint some more, select, paint some more. So you can kind of see that doesn't look natural. We got all that duplication going on, but it shouldn't be a problem. Once we put her back over it, you won't even see it, so it's all good. Okay, so now you can see that I have more or less did a cloning tool. It doesn't look great because you can kind of see how these little patterns have been replicated over and over again, but I just needed to fill it up because now when I put her back on there, you're not going to be able to tell that that was there. Okay, so now it's all good. And I can now, now that it's done and I'm kind of more or less happy with what it's going to look like, before I bring it into After Effects, I need to turn on the quick mask. Now I can do a save as, and I will put it where it needs to go, and I will call this new exploitation picture, and I'm saving it as a PSD. I want to make sure I have layers, alpha channels selected, and that's available to me only because I have the quick mask on. It gives me an alpha channel. Say save and OK. I'm in After Effects. I'm going to import that file. Here it is. Before I double click it, make sure I change it from footage to composition, and I'll say OK. I want to maintain the ability to edit it in case I want to later on go back to Photoshop. Well, this photo has a strange size. You can see it's 794 by 670, so that's not a standard HD size. So I have to create a new composition. Make sure it's 1920 by 1080. All right, and I can go ahead and delete this other one here because that composition is wrong. And inside here are all my layers. So here's that one that I made. And let's go ahead and make sure it's just one view. And I'm going to just go ahead and drop that in here. And then I will take this other layer of the woman and put it on top. And so now I have those various things. Now I can start doing my animation to it. And so I'm going to select both layers. Then I hit the letter S for scale. What that does is it allows me to scale these things up uniformly, so that you're not. If you didn't do that and you just did one layer and you scaled this up, and then you went here and you scaled this up, it's a little. You can do it. You have to make it match, but you could also look at the numbers and say 217 here, 219 here, and then I can click on this and just say 217. And that will do that as well, but it's just easier to just select them both, and whatever is selected will scale together. Okay. Now I have to deal with this fact that I have these black bars here, and so what I might choose to do here is fill up the whole frame, hit the letter P for position. Now they're both selected, so I can now deal with them individually like this. And so since I'm dealing with a different aspect ratio, I typically try to, whenever possible, avoid using the black bars. It's not always possible to do that. In this situation, I can, though. And I want to get her closer in frame there. And you can now see what I'm working with. And so now I can turn that one on and off. All right. And so what I'm going to do, though, is I want these layers to parent one another. Because if I move the camera around, if I want to start on this guy's face and go into her, I can do that with a position, but that's going to keep the other thing from moving at the moment. So what I want to do is start out with my position of both of these guys, and I'm going to parent the woman to the background layer. So columns, parent. And I'll take, see, I have to first double check to make sure which is the right layer. I have to rename this. So this top one here is the woman. So I'm going to rename it so I can just look at it and see which is which. And this one here is going to be the old pervs. So now I'm going to parent the woman to the old pervs. Okay, and so now when I change the position of one, or change the position of the dudes, she's going to come along with it. And what I want to do is also, I'm going to hit Shift S, so the scale is there also. And so the scale, notice that the woman doesn't have scales, but because it's parented, she's also starting out there. So let's go ahead, and I want to start out on this guy's face.